Good afternoon and welcome back to the Old Timer Tavern. Oddly enough, we're recording on back-to-back weeks, so I can get back on the on-week, off-week, at least for the moment, which I'll talk about why in a second. But my name is Rob, aka Lantern Noir, and I am joined here at the Old Timer Tavern by...
Graybeard's Tavern.
We're glad to have you here. We've got, at the top of the stream, we will be discussing Stranger Things Season 4, Volume 1. So be prepared for full spoilers for anything that happens in Volume 1. We are not discussing anything in Volume 2. So no leaks, no advanced knowledge. I hadn't even seen the trailer for Stranger Things for the season. I came in completely pure. For the first time in a very long time, I entered a situation pure.
I do not watch trailers if I can possibly help it, except whenever, and this hasn't been true for a while since COVID, but before pre-COVID, I haven't been watching trailers since the movie Hancock with Will Smith came out. But the exception is Star Wars trailers. My brother always would, when a new Star Wars movie would come out, I would have to watch the trailer so we could talk about it. But other than that, yeah, I try to avoid trailers like the plague. And I've realized I have YouTube Red.
Wait. Can we use that phrase still?
What?
Avoid like the plague.
Oh,
I feel like that's become very niche because there are some people that does not connect with.
Yeah, we did.
That there was a plague and we watched them avoid it, and I gotta question that.
Yes. Well, it's smallpox and mumps are coming back due to anti-individuals who refuse.
And that's
smarts.
if the monkeypox doesn't get us.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, yes, I dodged trailers, and then I realized that I have YouTube Red, I think it is, and so I don't see commercials there either.
Ooh.
So people are like, well, it's on YouTube every 4 seconds, and I'm like, what? Because I've had it so long that I totally forgot that I've had it.
That
so
YouTube is paid for by advertising.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's torture. Yeah, I get it. Whew.
That's a thing.
My little indulgence, I guess.
Well, I see. I had seen so little. I may have mentioned this last week, but my students in the last weeks of the school year were trying to get me off topic, and did things like one goes, "So, what's the biggest monster in Dungeons and Dragons? Is it Vecna?" And it was like, first of all, spoilers. No, spoilers. And Shadow, welcome. And Azteki, since I did not greet you in person, thank you also for hanging out with us this afternoon. As always, remember, if you're listening to the podcast version of Happy Hour at the Old Timer Tavern, you are free to join us anytime we tape. Generally, it is at 5 o'clock on Tuesdays. We alternate, but you can always check the Twitters to see for sure at twitch.tv/Lantern Noir.
Eastern Standard Time.
You know, the cool time. But, which is funny because my game this afternoon wrapped up. I said, okay, guys, it's coming up on 3 o'clock. We're at our stop point. And one guy goes, 3 o'clock? No, it's not. And I would, no, 3 o'clock, my time. And he's like, oh, and I looked, it's 10 p.m. his time.
Yes.
Because we play 7 to 10 Eastern Europe, 6 to 9 Central Europe.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we play 5 to 8 British, I think.
Right.
And that
sounds about right.
That's a little early. I'm a little worried we're cutting out our English friends from possibly joining the game. But we've got 3 players in the game. It was a ton of fun.
Nice.
And it's a weekly game. So I'm really looking forward to keeping that going in perpetuity. But yeah, I was one of my first paid dungeon mastering endeavors with people I have no connection with.
Right.
Which was a little weird. Whole time I'm like, okay, now it's legit. So, but it
But
was fun.
enjoyable, right?
Oh yeah,
You had
yeah. It was.
Oh, awesome.
I'm running Candlekeep Mysteries. We will talk
Mhm.
Stranger Things. I was
Okay.
running Candlekeep Mysteries, and I changed up the hook a little bit, and it took them an hour to decide to investigate this guy's disappearance. So what
Mm.
the adventure provides is kind of a hand wave, like
Mhm.
just get them here and get them through the portal, with
Yeah.
like an hour to an hour and a half of role play,
Uh,
coupled with me giving them a permanent NPC to the party.
mm.
The barkeep Riona.
Okay. So you've attached an individual that they can learn to care about, and then we'll turn on them. That they can learn to love and
We haven't
adore
figured out if
forever.
everyone listens to her because she's just that gosh darn beautiful, or they're just
Mm.
that gosh darn afraid of her.
Well, most bartenders are like 10th level barbarians, ex-adventurers. So
Could
probably
could be both.
err on the side of caution. Yeah. So,
So Stranger Things, Dungeons and Dragons. It was funny because they said, with the spoiler, I said no spoilers. Like I know it's in the trailers that he's called Vecna.
mm,
Oh, okay. Which I thought was interesting.
yeah.
Let's start with initial reactions.
Okay.
What's your first impression?
I will start with what I found out today is a confession. I've only seen through episode 5, so I don't care though. We can go through 7, right? I
Uh,
think there's 7 because I today was thinking about it and I'm like, huh, let's see. And I looked something up on Google and it was like 7. So unless there is only 5 and the other 2 are 6 and 7 that are in volume 2, I may not have seen it all, but that's cool. I'm good with talking about it.
What I'm about to tell you
If
might
nothing else, I'll
be
have
a little-
theories and
okay, I am
I can.
looking now. You know what? We might be wrapping our shortest ever episode of
Huh.
Happy Hour at the Old Timer Tavern
Why?
because I'm not prepped to.
No, yeah,
We can't.
we can do Satanic Panic and everything else.
Okay,
I think
okay.
I think we can do it. I think we can do it.
We
There
can
should
do
be
it?
plenty.
You can do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm confirming now. Volume 1
Mm-hmm.
contained episodes 1 through 7.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, I looked at lunchtime, and I was in the middle of 5, and I'm like, maybe there was only 5, and then I played it, and I thought I saw next episode, and I was like, oh fudge, I do not have time for this today. So I may be missing a couple episodes, but that's fine.
Okay.
We'll hit it.
Okay. So we're gonna err on the side of Graybeard with our conversation.
Okay.
As we failed to communicate, as seems to be trendy this week around here. And that's its own conversation to be had. Welcome to retirement, where you now have to monetize every minute of your day.
Oh, blah.
Nah, I could get a day job.
Yep.
So, impressions through episode 5. Let's start there.
So yeah, I do. The nostalgia is just absolute amazing. It's just they did a really good job of everything. I thought I caught them on one thing, and I cannot remember what it was right now. But as things were going along, I'm like, wait a minute, this is supposed to be what, 86 or whatever, and I'm like, pretty sure that didn't happen, or this was, like all the products looked correct and stuff, but there was one specific thing that I saw it and thought, that's a non-original. That's a fake. But yeah, stuff like, Freddy Krueger in the video store.
How about video stores?
Yeah. Oh gosh, just video stores. Period.
The sign,
Yeah.
be kind, rewind.
Mind yes. Oh, yeah. Like I said, the nostalgia bug is gigantic.
Did you ever have the pleasure of working in a video store?
Uh, no. uh, so we had this place. It was called Gervans. I talk about it all the time because it was heaven for high school and then my first year or so of college. This place, Curvans, 24 hours, gas station, pizza, hoagies, and donuts. They made pizza, hoagies, donuts. They had the back half of the store was a video store. And then, of course, they had beer, wine, blah, 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 blah. Not that I could buy it legally then, but it was there. And movies were all 2 for 1. Whenever you rented, you bought one video, you got another one. And so it was like, you're always got a double feature going on,
Or more importantly, you always have a backup.
Yes.
Because there's nothing more fun than popping the movie in, hitting play, going 10 minutes in and going, the hell are we watching?
Why did I grab Redneck Zombies? What was I thinking?
Yeah, and that's like, well, either we finish watching it or we get in the car and we go back.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say, the old man comment, y'all think it's a pain to sit there on the couch and scroll through Netflix arguing about what to watch next? At least you are on a freaking couch while you're doing it. We used to have to walk around. And then you'd end up with this stack of videos because the thing you didn't want to do, the thing you didn't do, you didn't walk around and go, okay, we've agreed we're watching Time Bandits tonight. Then walk back and someone else has already grabbed it off the shelf. So anything that was on the radar, you grabbed. Yep. And you go up to the counter with the stack of videos, which you'd thump down, and then you say, I want to rent these. These you can put back.
Exactly. I can't imagine. So Dr. Gear, he worked in a video store for quite some time.
Good work.
Yeah. It was so good. It was so good when he was there. I did third shift convenience store though. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So I did the video store for 2 summers. Well, 2
nice.
summers and while I was student teaching.
Yeah.
I worked in the video store at night.
So,
which was interesting because we also had a back room.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Curvans did not have that room. You had there was several party stores in town that had that shelf that was behind the counter that you could ask for stuff off of, but Curvans didn't have, if I'm remembering correctly, did not have that room.
Well, you had to make a very specific choice.
That is a lie. They did have that room. Okay, side story. We will get to Stranger Things. This is nostalgia. This is the era. We're setting the seed.
We're doling out pearls of wisdom from our youth.
Right. So, second date with this young lady, and I realized that her dad is the vice president of one of the 3 biggest companies in our town. And it's a worldwide international company. And so I pick up a couple movies at Curvans, and
as one does.
And I get there and and the parents decided to let us watch movies by ourselves in the basement. The basement, it was, completely finished, and another whole place as bigger. The family room was as big as the house I grew up in, kind of thing. So we put the first tape in, which is supposed to be Whoopi Goldberg and The Color Purple, right? total porn movie. I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad that the parents weren't watching this with us, because the two of us had a good laugh, and it's very funny. And I hope to this day she still tells that story also. But yeah, oh, second date, totes embarrassment. From high school,
See,
Anyway.
I got lucky around those because
Mm,
the girl I dated my senior year was not allowed to ride in a car until she was 17.
mm,
So our dates were hanging out at her house watching videos.
mm.
And after having gone out for 6 months, it was not uncommon for us to scramble to figure out what we could do with the VCR so that her parents didn't walk in on us watching snow.
Ah, yes, yes, got it.
Because the tape had run out and neither of us had bothered to go fix it. Yeah. Yeah. And I do recall one really awkward conversation where we did not. And there was a, why is there snow on the TV?
Mm, mm.
And us going, we dodged that particular bullet by claiming that we were so engrossed in our conversation, we hadn't been watching the television.
Good
Somehow,
dodge.
I was able to walk out with my kneecaps intact.
Yes, yes. Yeah, ooh, good job. All right. Instead of telling those stories, okay, so
Those
the
are good
nostalgia
stories.
part, the nostalgia part is just, is that's what the is it Duffer Brothers who write the
Yes.
show? Anyway, they are just, they're so, they've nailed it. They've just nailed it. There's just so much, the Walkman, the skateboards, everything is just pretty smack on.
The
So
over the top pep assembly.
yes. Oh man, yes. Yes. The Skip Goodright, Chip Rockjaw, the basketball captain, just straight out of 80s movies, perfect villain, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Or foible, I guess, more than a villain. Yeah, and of course Eddie, the dungeon master in this series, who love him, absolutely love him.
Okay, so can we talk about Eddie for a second here?
Sure, yeah.
I appreciate the character they were creating.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that the crazy dungeon master who is so engrossed in his game he has no concept of the real world, which is what we saw him in the first episode or two. We gotta live for the game, die by the game.
Mm-hmm.
Very, I think, almost too cliche character that Joseph Quinn brought us. I do think he dialed it back well. I think that over the next several episodes, they're like, no, this guy's got some depth to him.
Yeah,
He's a human being. He gets it.
I think as an arc, Eddie is an amazing character, and I think that his over the topness is part of that showman, that theater kids, that the 80s glam rock kind of just over. Yeah, I can say I've known guys like him,
Really?
but none of them were like D&D guys.
Ah.
They were all like metalheads.
Okay.
That were just, they were the kids who had the drugs and did the stuff and, all that. And so, yeah, I think they did a great job of, this is who I am. But then, like, when he's in the woods with Chrissy and he's like, you don't remember me, do you? And she's like, no. And that, I thought that was very well done. That's a very middle school, 2 years later, you go to different middle schools or whatever. 2 or 3 years later, you meet up again in high school, and you're like, what? You know,
Well, and that I think Ear nailed it. Is in the first episode we saw the idea of the dungeon master from the 80s in that satanic panic phase of this is someone who will control your children. And I mean, I've played with some people that were pretty hardcore. Ogre, the DM I played under a lot in college,
yeah,
was pretty like if you were supposed to be at a session and you called him the day of to go, dude, I can't. He
yeah,
was not afraid to tell you to pack some bags and send you on a guilt trip.
yeah, yeah.
Way more than I am today. And I think even today, I think he's probably mellowed a bit. At least I hope he has. Because that was kind of a thing that you did. Like, hey, I worked really hard to prepare for this.
Yeah.
Was much more common a thing you would say than I think we do now because we kind of acknowledge, I don't know if it's because we're older or we just kind of acknowledge life happens.
I think that due to liquid television, short attention span theater, just the way we've filled our lives with other things, it's just much more acceptable now than back then. I mean, again, back then it was usually, this is our D&D group and this is what we do. We play D&D and it's the thing, and it is the center of our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when we would have a snow day, I would tie a toboggan behind the quad runner, and I would go out on the road because there's not going to be anybody else out there, and it's the only way you could ride a quad runner through that much snow, and go around the neighborhoods and pick everybody up and take them over to Scott's house, and we'd all go down in the basement and play D&D like all day. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Now, adjacent to this, can we agree that we all want Kevin Feige to call up Joseph Quinn, the actor who plays Eddie, and start writing a young Tony Stark series? Can we just agree on this? Is that just assumed? Do we need to say that out loud?
We do, because I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, wow, that would be really well done. I think that would be pretty sweet to see him do young Tony Stark.
Yeah, I saw my first thought was they got Robert Downey Jr. for this, and his acting, like the
Yeah.
over the top showman, like
Yeah.
I could see him doing the
Right.
snarky,
Yeah.
brilliant minded young playboy pre Iron Man.
Yeah. That would be neat to see, the young adventures of Tony Stark, something like that. There's an animated series along those lines, but yeah, it would be good. I'd watch that. Get at it, Disney.
Yeah,
Get at it.
I'd put down my $20 for that movie ticket. Okay, here's ask. I'm not sure if it's as accepted still. I think it's the geek guilty pleasure non-geeks like to act like, because it's the cool new thing.
Well, there were definitely tables where if you didn't show, your character would suffer, or type stuff, and all that adversarial kind of thing and stuff. So yeah, I knew a lot of those guys.
Which also
Yeah.
which also plays a lot into like mechanically speaking about D&D, is that but when you do experience points, and we had experience points tables, in second edition, not everybody leveled at the same rate. So if I, as the rogue, was handed a bunch of experience points, I might hit level 5. The wizard might still be at level 4, and the fighter might be at level 3.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of like, oh, you can't make it? Fine. You're not going to earn any experience.
Right.
Because it was understood that the party would separate by level over time. So you'd have like a level 8 this, and level 4 that, and level 3 this. And then it became a lot of babysitting because the game wasn't designed to be balanced around that.
No, who's that top player? Oh well, we're gonna give you a 17 hit dice monster now because
Because that's what we got.
because that's where we're at. Wandering monsters, chicka chicka chicka.
Oh,
Oh,
that's not good.
a dragon again. Or the dumb stuff, the oh, your character died. You have to start at level 1, but you guys are like 12th level. There's no
Yeah.
way. There's no way. First fireball, black, first level character dead.
So
Everything you meet that has terror, those characters run away. Oh, you weren't in the fight. You don't get any experience. Oh,
oh, you died during the fight? You don't get experience.
there it's yeah.
They might res you, but you still didn't get experience. And you lost con for dying too.
That's
So if you died and got brought back, your con went down.
yeah.
So
Oh,
all the good old rules to ensure that you showed up and you did your part.
so crunchy.
But it was
So
so
crunchy.
it really did hit that vibe though of like that was the geek table.
Yeah. Um, it was funny because as as we went from kids to middle school to high school, most of my players ended up not being the like geeks and freaks, but by 10th grade or so, they were all like the metalheads. They were all the rock and roll kids that were kind of, who usually ended up in that path because of social, class stratification and this and that and school politics. The they show all these movies where the kid who is the metalhead or whatever, he comes from a busted up house or whatever, and a lot of that was true, man. I mean, I was the first kid in my elementary school to have parents that got a divorce, and I was treated way like my parents had died. They were people were like, it's okay, we understand, and I'm like, I'm acting out because I don't know what to do, and everybody's acting weird, and yeah. Anyway, so, but yeah. Anyway, yeah. So nostalgia factor was amazing. Character arc for Eddie was just fantastic. I
Mm-hmm.
thought it was great that they showed, a little bit of foreshadowing when he's like, "It's okay to run" in the D&D game, and then later on he's like, "I guess this is what I do. I run now." And when the thing happens with Chrissy, he's on the floor just screaming. It's not. I just think that he was a very real character, and it felt the arc felt good.
It was also one of the
So
most likely people to go, okay, I understand this is something beyond my comprehension. Like you would,
right.
like we flatter ourselves as D&D nerds that we are open to the supernatural,
Mm.
and nope, we're not.
No.
Nope, we are just as bad as the next. Because that's what happens when we're confronted with the realities of things. I personally really enjoyed because I have a lot of critiques,
Mm.
but they're nitpicky because I really have enjoyed a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think they are showing a lot of the 80s view of D&D nerds,
Mm.
but they're still keeping it positive overall.
Mm. Okay.
Like Eddie is
Yeah.
showing he actually has social skills.
Yeah.
And even
Yeah.
the main characters are showing they have social skills and they're still into D&D.
Mm.
Because there was the thing back in season 3 where Will's ongoing line was, are we ever going to play D&D again?
Yeah.
Are we ever going to play D&D again? And here the kids are in high school and they're in the D&D club.
Right.
So they're not afraid to stay with what they love,
Right.
despite the fact that it's not as mainstream.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that is because of the big personality of Eddie. You know what I mean? I think that uh, so I moved. I moved every 6 months from the time I was 8.5, 9 until I was like 20. And so, I moved every 6 months, and every place I moved and everything I went to, I always made a new D&D group. I spread the nerd, and it was, I think that is the reason they had a D&D club, was because Eddie probably ended up not being able to be a theater kid, but he was kind of a theater kid, and it just, he went the rock and roll route and created the High Hope Fire Club. I'm actually wearing the t-shirt of the Gamers Club that I made in college. Well, Sparrow and I made in college. That is still a viable club at this college today. And I think that just is, yeah, I think that's what that's supposed to show. Also, too, they did lay the Satanic Panic on pretty hardcore, but I don't think it was that hardcore. I think there were times and places. I mean, I got chased out of my friend's house. When me and him were playing D&D, his mother was screaming at me and literally chased me out of the house. You brought that filth into my house, you little monster. And then another friend of mine had my Fiend Folio. His mother found his D&D books and burned them all. So my original Fiend Folio got immolated. So,
yeah, that's not good.
I do remember there was a time when I think it was late college, one of our players said, "Why don't you just put this on your calendar? We play Sunday nights at such a time. So when someone says to you, 'Hey, do you want to do something Sunday night?' You say, 'No, I got a thing.
I got a
I
thing.
can't.'"
Yep.
But
I was working on that right before we started. I came down and started working on my schedule because I'm trying to find I'm trying to carve out my times for all of my projects and all of my different things. And I had a great time this afternoon with my my group that started Candlekeep, my European group.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, how do I schedule more of these in my week?
Right.
And making sure that I've got all my little time slots covered and I'm not, stretching myself too thin in any one direction. And then what night do I want to do the West Coast US group?
Right.
That's the other question, is how do I set that up?
Yeah.
Because there's so much going on. But yeah, that's the thing. And I'll also point out the wonderful moment that, at least according to the Twitters, that someone figured out that when you're all in the military and one of you is an officer,
right,
they will always be at D&D.
Yeah.
Because you can order them to.
I remember that. It was really funny because that was, again, that was very frowned upon when I was in high school. Oh, the recruiters were like, no, don't tell anyone you play that thing. They come from the recruiters. They're like, you'll never be an officer if they know you play that garbage, and stuff. And I'm like, whoa, what? And then as I grew into that area, that people would tell me that was the way it was. If you wanted to play D&D on base or whatever, you kept it quiet.
Yep.
So,
and now they're the exact opposite. They even have people coming into prisons to run it,
right?
Because it can be really good for people. Which gets back to the. I was double checking while you were talking. I was double checking the episode synopsis. So I can be sure I know exactly what you have and have not seen.
I keep telling you, don't worry about it. But okay.
It matters to me. It matters to me. Because I think, I'm double checking now for the meeting with the town meeting.
Yes.
I think that's later. That's in, you saw that.
That's in like 5. I
That's
think
in
that's the
season
last
5.
that I think that's the last episode I saw,
Okay.
actually, where they get out on the at the end. They're on the boat, and the two basketball dudes go after him on the lake. So that's
Yep.
one of the last things I
There it
remember.
is.
So
Okay, so you did see that meeting where they
hmm
really do get into that fear that it
hmm
doesn't take much. I mean, you have something terrible happening, and we could even say in a community where it does not involve Vecna.
right,
It simply involves something bad.
right,
But then you can point at this game, which is so outside of the norm for activities. I mean,
yeah,
role playing games don't fit into many other boxes that we
right,
connect with. It's not a sporting event,
right,
usually. It can be. It's not a competitive board game, generally.
hmm
Could be. But it has so many other elements that it's hard to understand at first.
right.
And which then leads to when someone on the news says this Dungeons and Dragons thing, you don't have to hear a lot and you can start to fill things in.
Well, particularly when they're hearing on the news the satanic cult of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
You know, when news anchors are saying, the the literal words that connect the satanic game, the satanic cult, the satanic rituals, you know, I, the little comic book with Blackleaf. Do you remember that? The little religious comic book?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, Nancy, you've reached 7th level. Blackleaf now, blah, blah, blah. But Blackleaf died. No. And then she kills herself. And I'm just like, oh my God. Whew.
Well, and again, it was one of those where because the game gates abilities by level,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember this happening a lot at the dinner table when I talked about role playing games. I would often say, I did. I
Right.
did. I did. And a couple of times my dad would look at me and go, you mean your character did? And it was that kind of a comment, though, that really grounded me in the wait a minute, remember, this is a game.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm talking about it with other people, I should remember I'm not describing my own actions. We tend to, when we play, we tend to get past that. We tend to be in character. We tend to think in character. We tend to take so much ownership of what we do
Mm-hmm.
that becomes I did.
Mm-hmm.
I came up with this plan and I challenged the queen and I talked her down. And at a certain point, it's like, well, Leonard Noir came up with a plan,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, there was a die roll that determined whether or not we talked her down or not.
Yeah. Well, so this is much later in life. I was probably in my I have to say late 20s, maybe early 30s. Yeah, I think it was late 20s. And I made a new friend at work who was a Dungeons and Dragons player, and I started talking to him at one point, and I said, "Yeah, I knew these elves once." Right? We're mid D&D talk, and when I said I knew these elves once, he Spock eyebrowed me really hard, where it was like, what, you knew these elves? I was like, well, my character knew these elves, and so anyway. Whew.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, new peeps, how you doing?
Welcome, welcome, welcome. As we
Yeah,
do.
so it is one of those things where they definitely you put on the facade to play the game and such, and you get to be somebody else for a while, and that's what's kind of cathartic and amazing about it.
Right. But to someone who doesn't do it, it's similar to, okay, so I'm sitting around and I'm talking about any major television show at lunch with my coworkers. And I say things like, and then he did this and she did this and that led to this. And he's like, you realize you're not talking about real people, right?
Mhm.
And it's like, yeah, I know that. And it's a little Bradbury-esque about the talking about the stories
Right.
and becoming
Yes.
so enraptured in the stories that
Mm.
we disconnect reality from fiction. I get
Yeah.
that. I get the caution. I get the caution. But I think part of the power of storytelling is that ability to connect.
Yeah, and I I think back then too, it was so new and so different than anything that it's a game. Well, what kind of board does it have? Or does it have a ball? Or, no, it has dice. Okay. And it was just so hard to explain to people what was happening and what it was like. I think too that in that time period coming out of the 70s and the 80s with so many kids being latchkey kids and parents starting to both have jobs and stuff, and there were not stay-at-home moms, that society as a whole was feeling, whoa, wait, what is happening, you know? And coming out of the punk movement of the 70s, it really, then rock and roll hit, and rock and roll was just like, okay, we don't really care so much about the social thing. We just want to, party all night and blah, blah, blah. And we want to break the rules. But what
Breaking
is
the
the
law.
what is the backlash we can fight? The religion, because everybody was Catholic or everybody was Protestant. That was what the country was made of at the time.
Well, and they hit on that during that meeting. They talked about the we have seen the devil.
Yeah.
And okay, to be fair, in this instance, kind of,
Yes.
kind of, but and that's something that hasn't changed since the 80s. We still
Right.
have the push of, we need more God in our schools, we need more God in our lives. And I feel for people who look and go, things would be better if more people believed what I believe. I think
Mm.
that's not inherently a bad trait.
Yeah.
I do think that when it is then applied as a public policy, which happened in the 80s and it happens today, of you don't
Mhm.
believe as I believe, therefore you are evil.
Yes. Yeah.
It was a lot easier in the 80s to really go after people
Right.
that were not church going every Sunday, yada, yada,
Mhm.
yadas.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And there were, in the small town I grew up in, this is this church and this is that church, and this is, the reason we have 5 churches that are all Catholic churches are because, it's different parts of town. We couldn't fit everyone in one single church.
Yep.
And then down there by the river, that's where the Lutherans are at. We just and I happen to be in one of those Lutheran families, growing up and stuff. So yeah, so I felt weird pressure all the time from different sides and different things. And my mother tried to take us to church once, and we were such unruly little monsters that she didn't, want to take us again. And my dad said, "Great, good, they don't have to go,"
And that's that.
and that was it. That was it. So, okay, I will tell a story. After my parents got divorced, I went to live with my aunt, and my aunt made the mistake of sending me to Bible camp. Now I'm like 9 years old, and I've been to church once, right? So I had no idea what was going on, and I won't tell the full story because we got, time and whatnot. But I ended up getting, as an 8-year-old child, I ended up getting a fist fight with the nun. Me and the nun were punching each other, and, my aunt was made to drive up to the place and take me back from Bible camp and bring me home. And I was told I could not come back to St. Anne or St. Thomas or whatever ever again. So
I
so
have
I've
so
had
many
a
questions.
it,
Just so many
I,
questions.
all right, I will
But we'll
quick.
We'll come back to it.
Okay.
We'll come back to it because that. I have so many questions, and we have more to talk about. So,
but again, that's how that kind of panic comes from. Everybody's supposed to be the same. Why are you different? Why are you weird? You can't be weird, you know. And if it's weird, we don't like it. And you know, yeah, we need to burn your books because you're different.
Which I feel like the current, and this, I don't think this includes stuff that per se shows up in the last episode. The current arc on Stranger Things, I'm wondering if that's where the parents are going to end up. Because I'll tell you, they don't burn any books through volume 1. But there's enough stuff where the family of the community is figuring out that these kids are all involved, and you know who's in the Hellfire Club and what they've been up to, and we're seeing more of the parents with agency now than we have in the past. I feel like, because I feel like in previous seasons, parents have been very much an afterthought.
Well, yeah, very, very Charlie Brown, you know, except for obviously Hopper and Joyce and those who are directly involved.
Sensitive. That is one way to catch them out. Look what I wrote. When they freak out, it's like, yeah. There's some really neat numerology tied to the repetition of numbers and theological math versus real math.
Oh,
so for example, 77 is commonly used as a representative for 7 times 7, as opposed to the number 77, because it's seen as orders of magnitude. It can also be seen where if you triple a number, you're not taking the number and squaring it, you're taking the number and cubing it, because you're moving from 1 dimension to 2 dimension to 3 dimensions. So you end up with a very different and very significant number, which is part of how 666 sticks out so much, is because 6 was considered an evil number. And then if you have 2 6s, that's like 6 squared. If you have 3 6s, that's like 6 cubed.
It's a whole lot of 6s.
It's a whole lot of 6s. It's a whole lot of 6s. So some interesting stuff there, at least as I was taught when I was attending Catholic school. Because I did do Catholic school through 6th grade.
Wow.
It was an experience. Some of it was positive.
All right.
But that loops us then back into the D&D. I mean, Stranger Things, there's so much to talk about with the character arcs. It's great to see Robin back.
Yes.
I'm going to be honest, I kind of miss Confident Robin.
Yeah. Yeah, that is weird. I like that. I would like to see Confident Robin outside of the situation with Vicky, and then see her get all mushy gushy goo brained only in the Vicky thing. You know, her just be like snap on and be that snark, have that snarkitude and stuff, and then all of a sudden, you know, Steve brings up, well, what about Vicky? And her just kind of get blush and like, yeah, gears grind. But I don't, you know.
Well, and it's interesting because in episode 5, I believe, or is it 4? I'm double checking. No, it was in 4 where they went into the asylum.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There we did see Robin in her usual confident self again.
Yeah.
And I almost missed it. I wasn't looking up when she started. I was distracted by something. And then I look up and she's just given this speech about equality and being respected and having to, work 3 times as hard as the next guy. And yes, I hate wearing this, but I had to, like, the brilliance of the writing in that scene.
Yeah.
Where the character of Robin was able to pull, I hate wearing this stupid outfit, into, but you're making me do it to make a positive impression because we're women and we have to.
Right.
Like, I was like, okay, that's the Robin we know and love.
Yeah.
That's our girl.
Yeah, I had forgotten that it was her who stepped up in that moment.
Right.
So,
Because Nancy was
yeah.
banking on we just look pretty and we'll be fine. And Robin's like, no, we're going to have to go a step further here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And really called out the BS that is was worse in the 80s.
Yep.
Still
Yep.
has some room to go. But yeah, the
Yeah.
show has a lot of good messages. I thought it was really well done. I thought it was incredibly
Yeah.
well written.
Yeah. Uh, I don't know who likes what season and whatnot, but I'm liking it a lot.
Oh yeah.
Like the first season was shock and awe because it was like, oh, this show is for me. They made I thank you, Duffer Brothers. You wrote this just for the nostalgia bites and the Demogorgon and the D&D and the playing. Oh, and then second season cool, third season what's happening? I don't get it. And then I was like, okay, cool. And now we're back, and I'm like, oh, I'm on board. Very, very on board.
They definitely, I think they found the stride they were looking for in previous seasons.
Yeah.
I think it's one way I would describe it because there's enough stuff happening where it's like, okay, this is good high drama with some good suspense, some good action, some good horror, some good jump scares.
Yeah.
I'm glad they didn't shorten them. I don't know if you've looked at the length of the episodes, but
Yes.
these things are clocking in at 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And I could definitely see maybe in previous seasons they were like, no, we have to keep this under an hour. Find some stuff to cut.
Well, and
And
they probably found in the writing room, they're like, we cannot tell this story in 8 episodes, or whatever they're gonna get, 7, 8, 9 episodes. And they're like, we're gonna have like 12 episodes. And someone went, ooh, that'll take us way into August or something, you know what I mean? And so they probably, yeah, I don't know. They somewhere in the writers' room, they made the decision to have longer episodes but less of them. So I don't know if that's like a Netflix thing now. Like, oh, we'll make each one of these like a mini movie.
yeah,
Uh,
that's
you
what they
know,
definitely felt like. Because we binged them. We were knocking out 2 episodes
yeah.
a night to try to get through it. Because we were feeling guilty. We weren't caught up. And I think tonight we're going to try to catch up on... No, we are caught up on Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
But we had to binge that one.
What happened? What happened to me was I was on vacation. I had to wait until I was on vacation, and then I ended up binging it, and that's why I think it was like one of those where it was like, that's why I can't remember. This was like I was probably like 3 a.m. by the time I was watching episode 5, and I was like, I need to go to bed. And then I either thought that I had finished it, like that was the end, or I thought I would come back to it the next day and didn't. And then just somewhere in there, I'm like, oh yeah, I finished that. I binged it. So anyway.
No. I also thought it was neat that in this season, they brought in the idea of I come with my character already made and already played. And when it's Erica, right? Is the sister?
I think that's her name.
Shows up.
Lucinda. Maybe it is Erica. Don't quote me. My brain, like I said, it's been.
I'm back to double checking.
Yeah.
As I'm skimming through the episode recap.
But yeah, that was a thing back then. You would come with a character and hand it to the DM, and they would go through it and then hand it back to you. I remember people, even like in my adult life, in my like 30s and 40s, who were old school players, would come to the table and be like, okay, this is my character, and hand it to me, and I'd be like, great, whatever. Hand it back to them, and they would look at me like, you don't have to go through it and accept whatever. And I'm like, I'm just going to tell you, this is a conversation. I will tell you now, if there's anything really stupid in that, we'll have a talk. my plus 30 hammer of lightning bolts. Yeah, if that's it. Oh, I remember one where I handed it back to them and I'm like, "Yeah, it's cool." They're like, "Well, I do have the I forget, this was probably third edition. I have the leadership skill, and at my current level, that means I have a sixth level henchman."
Ah,
And I'm like,
yes.
so you're coming to the table with two characters, is what I'm hearing. And he's like, "Well, yeah, but blah 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 and this and that." And I was like, okay, obviously, at that point I didn't say this out loud, but I'm like, I am playing with a min maxer. Okay, power gamer, and to use the older terms, and I'm like, I will look at that character. Just let me see that. So, but yes, I think you are right, good sir. I
Yep.
think it is Erica.
Yep, played by Priya Ferguson,
Woohoo.
aka Lady Applejack.
Yes.
Which, can we take a moment to appreciate the fact that this kid named her character after a kind of moonshine?
Oh, I thought she named it after the cereal, the breakfast cereal, Apple Jacks.
Oh,
That's what I thought it was.
well,
So
there's
I
also the My
thought,
Little Pony of the same name.
oh, it is Applejack.
A My
Is
Little
that
yeah, it's the catch
is it the,
name for fermented apple cider.
oh
If you
wow,
turn apple cider into alcohol,
it's
it's referred to as
Applejack.
Applejack.
So My Little Pony just sneaking one in on us
Indeed,
there.
they have. Um, Although now that you met, I'd forgotten about the cereal because we don't consume it in
Yeah.
our house. And I'm like, because it kind of like the ups and downs of the why did you pick the name Applejack has a
Mm.
lot of flows to it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Uh,
got, yeah, and well, and I think someone had a My Little Pony poster in their room. I remember seeing it. I don't
God,
know
the
if it was
ponies.
Erica or not. Not the ponies. Well, first you get the ponies, then you get the bronies. Um, yeah. So, yeah, that's interesting that you came at it one way and I came at it this other way and stuff. And so, yeah. But yeah, and she just announced to him 14th level rogue.
Yep.
So
And she was all, in fact, the summary page chaotic good half elf rogue level 14.
yeah, it's something I will backstab. Whatever you monster you throw at me, I will backstab and it will die slowly of my poison or something like
Yes.
that. I was like, ugh. And
Like,
her
yeah,
wearing
just
oh,
I am also nerd. But yeah, and that so a lot of people too, that goes back to the idea that there was a strong, strong culture of every character starts at level 1.
mhm,
And the only way to be a higher level than 1 is you had to play in games
mm,
to get you up in level. And this is the thing I thought was very interesting with quote back then. If you played in a game where you didn't get equipment rewards,
mm,
you might get to level 8, 9, 10 and be like underpowered because
mhm.
the DM didn't give you the right rewards.
Yeah, yeah. The so-called Monty Hall DMs who like every adventure was blah, throw treasure, and it always had to be, every you defeated the goblins. Here's your +5 defender. +6 plate mail. Blah.
Hmm. Well, I think the video game Neverwinter Nights
Mm.
played on, was it second edition or was it on third edition mechanics?
Baldur's Gate second must have been 3 or 3.5.
There must have been 3 then, but that was still in that phase
Yeah.
because that was one where like you could click on level requirements for
Mm.
equipment in your modules. And if you didn't
Oh.
do that, anybody could equip anything. So you could have a 5th level character running around with a Holy Avenger.
Hmm.
And I had to be careful because I made a Holy Avenger rapier the
Oh.
reward for finishing the Ravenloft module.
Mm.
Because I had
That's
written a
cool.
mod for Neverwinter Nights of Ravenloft, which was just the
Yeah.
original Ravenloft. It was go into Barovia, or you started at a tavern, go to Barovia, go to the castle, kill the vampire.
Mm.
And then get the finale scene. After the vampire was dead, you were all teleported to a big finale. See you off. Thank you for being here. You saved our lives. I am now yada 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 yada. And then you would be gifted one rapier with the trait Holy Avenger. But I had to like tweak things because I was like, okay, well, if I advertise this as a 5th level adventure and they finish it at 6th level, can they use it? Or will it go level requirement has not yet been met for this item? Because even then there was a certain amount of, you weren't supposed to bring a character to an online multiplayer game that you hadn't played up from level 1.
Yeah.
Because there was no in-system leveling thing. You could download a leveling mod where you would go into the adventure and the dungeon master would give you XP. But there was no way within the game itself to say, I want to make a 5th level character.
Yeah.
Because you didn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, and look at the games today. Baldur's Gate, Solasta. Yeah. Pillars of Eternity. You know, all of those. You start. You can't just go. Let's start at 5th level. You know.
You can create a 5th level character in Solasta, but you can only use them in campaigns that are designated for higher than 1st levels. Like when they came out with their first wave of DLC, which was mostly just dungeon crawling.
Yeah.
You had to be 5th level, at least it was levels 5 to 10. So you had to make 5th level characters to go in.
Right. Okay. I can see that then. But yeah, I couldn't think of any of those games where, you know, except, okay, so they did make games for high level stuff because they made Pool of Radiance, Curse of Azure Bonds, and whatever the third one was that I can't remember right now. But that one started at like 10th or 12th level.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you could start at those levels, but a home game or whatever, or most video games, unless it was the third part of a series, you were not starting at a higher level. You were beginning at 1st and going from there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then it comes down to, and again, I think it almost felt like a trope. And I forgot, this was episode 1 they did this.
Yeah.
With the basketball game opposite the D&D game.
Oh,
and the final buzzer and the final die roll.
Yes.
And the only thing I would have done different were I writing it.
Yeah.
Instead of rolling the 20
and
having a critical hit, I would have had it roll up as a 17.
Okay.
So that we add the extra drama of, is that enough? Is that enough? So I would have had the die roll up to 17, like when the ball is bouncing.
Yeah.
So that Eddie has to go, and that's enough to hit.
Yeah.
As the ball drops.
Yeah.
Because that's, I mean, the 20 is a clear, like, obvious, we all get it. But that was a missed opportunity to communicate the true tension of how good do I have to roll? Did I do it?
Yeah.
And that's a much more common, palatable emotion at the table of like, okay, you just have to hit them.
Yeah.
You just have to hit them.
Your minimum damage for that spell or whatever is, you know, and he's only got 15 hit points left.
I was wondering if they were going to do you hit them, now you have to roll for damage.
Right.
Like, good job. You got your natural 20.
Nope.
So how's your damage roll going to go? Because I still have 17 hit points left.
Right. So if you don't get a 6 on this and an 8 over here and plus 5,
Yep.
Yeah.
There were ways if they had invited us to be technical advisors, and we are available for hire, cheap. That's what I would have added in as, and I think they could have done it without alienating non-D&D people.
Okay, see, and that's why that's my thinking is why they did the D20, because it just was like, okay, we get it, and they cheer, and any non D&D player that's watching it with you, you can be like, that it's a D20, it's the best you can roll, it's a super hit, and just explain it like that. And this is why I thought they did it that way.
Yeah,
So
I would have had it come down to just Erica. She had to roll the hit, and then she had to get enough damage to kill it. And I think they could have communicated that, like, she could have rolled a natural 20, and a bunch of people could have gone, oh my gosh, she hit it. Ball's bouncing. She goes, no. Now I have to do enough damage to kill it.
So the ball in the basketball game is like rolling around the rim
and
or
she's
something.
warming up her damage roll.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. That's cool.
That also would have been really cool. And very much more in flavor with the way games tend to run. In my opinion. As humble yet deadly accurate as it is.
Click clacks and math rocks.
You got it.
So here's a thing.
Okay.
We're starting to see that the monsters from the Upside Down are not extensions of the imaginations and or the kids are applying D&D as a way to accept and think about the Upside Down. Not that the Upside Down is created from their imaginations. And I think that's really apparent in this one, because Vecna was someone before.
Yes.
He wasn't just a product of. So I think that really is a very, interesting dynamic that we are now seeing.
Yeah, there's a lot more going on with a longer and richer history, which is really neat. And I'm pumped for volume 2. I think they've made some neat choices. We are at an hour 10 right now.
Wow.
And we have barely scratched the surface of all the things we could talk about.
Yeah.
Which means we're going to have to do more of this. I mean, I'm not sure we're full on ready to change into a Stranger Things podcast.
Right.
But we will definitely have more to say after volume 2, and maybe we'll do a special double episode.
All right.
When we get there. What's coming up this week for you in D&D or other RPGs, or just that you want to talk about?
All right. So tomorrow night, obviously, we're doing Kids on Brooms. Can't wait to get back to that. I may actually have my head buzzed up. Not that Dave has a buzz haircut, but Kids on Bikes here, back Lantern Noir 7 or 7:30?
7 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time.
There we go. And then Thursday, I'll be over at Indoor Adventures for Call of Cthulhu at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. And then the next time after that you could see me is Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, for playing with all our, I guess, with toys, and shovels and all our good stuff here that we play with every Sunday morning, because we play Wilder Myth. And I'm on episode 46, 47, something like that now. So that's 10-ish on Sunday. That's it for me. GB.
Nice. And as mentioned, tomorrow night I've got Kids on Brooms. And then we were going to play the Bitter Victory this weekend. We may or may not. We usually play that Saturday mornings. But we've had another one of those. It's hard to get here for that pop-ups. One of our players, because that will be her Saturday night.
Oh.
And she has plans to go out to help someone celebrate the death of her youth.
Oh.
She turned 30 during lockdown.
Oh.
So they're going out in funeral wear.
Oh.
To memorialize their childhood having passed.
Someday I'll get there, and I too will celebrate the passing of my 30th birthday.
Yeah, sure. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that's the hosts of the Old Timer Tavern are going to try to convince you we have not celebrated our 30th birthdays yet. Well, let's be fair. The days have come and gone.
Yeah,
We just
may
haven't
not have
celebrated it.
celebrated. Oh, I'm pretty sure when we were 30, I was celebrating pretty hard. So okay,
But that's it for
All right.
that. Ravenloft is also off this week. Unfortunately, we've had another conflict with our players come up, and I don't think we can reschedule it. So I'm going to be kind of going through a bit of a D&D lull, which is not bad. It's letting me have some time in my new retirement to focus on my scheduling, keep adding games to start playing games. There's a massive discussion right now. I will probably be posting a Curse of Strahd game there.
Yeah.
Because I love running Curse of Strahd, and it is incredibly popular on that site. So,
Well, and I mean, you say that there's this ebb, but you have games scheduled as work
I do
now.
I do.
So that's amazing.
On my list of things to do tomorrow is to write the press release of retired teacher turns page on new career, professional dungeon master.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that like the Detroit News is having a slow day, and they're like, "Hey, we need a fluff piece for page 4. Someone call this guy, get a couple of quotes."
Yeah. And so, do you worship the devil?
Not directly. It's more of just an homage thing. Direct worship, that's really, like, he frowns on that.
It's a lot of work too.
Yeah, it's a big attention. And anyway, but that's where that's at. And then I also, as the summer goes on, I want to schedule, I haven't done it yet, but I want to lock out a night that my family sits down, because we played some D&D early in the pandemic, and then we didn't. And I really want to put on the calendar, like, hey, this is the night we play D&D as a family. And if we don't play D&D, we play a board game.
Nice.
But this is family night. Everyone is home.
Yeah.
Everyone's at the table. Devices go over there if they're not related to what we're doing.
Yeah. And that would be, that's something I'd need to do. First, I'd need like a compass, night goggles, and a pickaxe to clear the kitchen table, because that seems to be the place everybody throws everything,
Dude. Dude. All right. On that note, do you have a final thought for our podcast listeners?
Hadn't thought one up beforehand today, but with Stranger Things, with other shows, things out there, watch what you're gonna watch, love what you're gonna love, watch what you recommend to others. I usually don't do warnings. I try to stay positive, but really and truly, when you're out there suggesting shows to people, definitely take a moment and think about who you're suggesting to, and whether it could be found offensive to them. If you're not sure, look it up online. Look up the show. Is there woke problems with this show? Is there racist problems with this show? Because sometimes your biases, and you'll name a show, or you're remembering a show, talk about nostalgia, and you're like, oh, that show was great. Looking at it from a 9-year-old's perspective when you watched it in 1982 or something. And it's a lesson I've learned. And that's what I'm going to impart to you out there.
That'll work. Thank you for being part of our show. Thank you for the download. If you'd be ever so kind as to consider leaving us a review on your podcast platform of choice, it will help others find this and other fun content that we produce. And remember, this episode was recorded.
Tuesday, how are you? Oh wait, is that a door?
This episode was recorded live at twitch.tv/Lantern Noir with a studio audience. Sort of. Well, a very fun and supportive chat who we appreciate having here. We'll see y'all next time. Until then, stay safe.